Hi developers, I'm Hossam Delai, Microsoft MVP. In this video, we'll learn how to send an authenticated HTTP PUT request from Xamarin Forms application to an ASP.NET project. This authenticated HTTP PUT request will send some data that we want to change them in our ASP.NET application, and this request will embed the access token that the user have got when he did the login. So we'll send that access token inside the headers of our HTTP request. We'll send it to our web service. That web service is protected with the authorized attribute, so it will accept the request, look for the access token, it will recognize the user, and then will let us invoke that web service. So in the previous videos we have saw how to invoke those or how to send those HTTP requests with the access token, and with Postman we have seen how to create this HTTP PUT request. So we always focus on the 4 elements of our HTTP request. The first one is the address where we want to send our request. Then the verb we want to use. Here we'll use put in order to make a change to one of our entities stored in the database. Here the project is for creating ideas. So we want to change, for an idea we want to change the title, for example, the description or the category, and that we will be sending to our web service. So we'll send the idea, which is the main identity in our project. We'll send that idea as a JSON. For that we specify that the file here we are sending, or the data we are sending, is in JSON format, and that's by specifying here JSON as application/JSON. With this HTTP request, for now it's not an authenticated HTTP request. To make it authenticated, so we need to add the authorization header. For that we'll go here to the headers from Postman, and then say that we want to add a new header, which is here the access token for my user, and the access token is preceded by the keyword bearer. That's the type of my access token right here. Then when we hit send, this request will be sent to our ASP.NET application. The application before hitting the web service, because we did have the authorized attribute on top of the web service, we do have a filter that authorized attribute will process or will get this HTTP request, will analyze it, will view the authorization header, will take that access token, will try to analyze it. That means it will verify if that access token is valid and it corresponds to one of the users registered in the database. If that's the case, then it will let the HTTP request go to hit the web service, the put idea web service from my controller. If that's not the case, that means that the access token is either doesn't belong to a user or it is expired. In that case, it will return unauthorized or access denied. Cool. Now we have composed this request with Postman. So Postman will create this request for us, but how we can create this request from our Xamarin Forms application? That's what we'll be doing here. I'll go back to Visual Studio, and from within Visual Studio here I have my project ship ideas. It's composed of a mobile application written in Xamarin Forms, that means C#. Then I have a backend written in ASP.NET and uses ASP.NET identity as an implementation of OAuth. This web project have a controller called ideas controller. from this controller, we have all the methods for getting all the ideas, putting the idea, post and delete idea. So it implements CRUD operations against our ideas database. We are interested today to invoke this web service for put idea. So we need to send that idea, and here you see it's marked with the attribute authorize. So how can we invoke this from our C# or from our Xamarin Forms application? I'll go to my Xamarin Forms application, and right from here I have in a previous video I have created some other views for showing all the list of the ideas, adding a new idea, and we have also implemented the login and register. Here I recommend that you go and watch those videos. You can find all the links to the videos right here from my GitHub repo. You look for the project called Cheap Ideas, and you also get the source code for this application if you have missed some part of the demo. Cool. Now let's go back here. So I'll add the feature for editing an idea from my Xamarin Forms application. That means we'll add a new page where the user have an existing idea showed on that page. He can then change either the title, the description, or the category of that idea. Then he click a button to send those modifications to our ASP.NET application. So to build this page, we'll use the Mvvm design pattern as we already did with the other pages. For that, the page will be bound to a view model, and the view model, in order to send that request, it will use a service. That service is our API services. Here, where we implement all the methods that will communicate with our web services, methods like registering the user by his email and password, also login the user. Then we also implemented getting all the ideas by sending an authenticated request right here. And then we have also implemented adding a new idea to our application. Here now we want to put an idea or edit an idea. For that, I'll go and create a new public async method right here. This one we'll call it put idea async. Our method will accept an object of type idea, which will be the idea that we want to send to our web service. We'll go and create our HTTP client by saying equal new HTTP client. Then to the HTTP client, which represents here the HTTP request, then we'll go and say client dot headers, our default request headers, and here we want to add another header or to add a header for our HTTP request, this header for the authorization. For that, here we do have authorization attribute equal new authentication header value. So here we have two parameters. The first one is the type of the access token that we want to pass. So here we said it's a bearer, as we did specify that in Postman. So if I go back to Postman right here, we said it's of type bearer right here. Cool. So that's the first parameter. The second one should be the access token that should be sent with this request. The access token will be sending it also from this put method, and here it's gonna be the view model who will send that access token. For the access token, when we did login, if I go to the login method, here we received a JWT or JOT, and from that JOT we have extracted the access token, we returned it, and when we did return it, we did store it inside the settings file in our Xamarin application. The settings here enable us to save values as key values. So it's like a database, but it stores data as key values, not a list or a table of entities. So this is useful for scenarios like storing the access token, the username and password, and email for our users. Settings here is a NuGet package, which is called the xam.plugin.settings. So I have installed that NuGet package inside all my Xamarin projects. Like for that, here you see that I do have plugin.settings. So even if I restart my application, those access token will be saved to the application. I can retrieve them back. Cool. Now from our PUT idea, now that we have created that authenticated HTTP request, now let's send that request. But now we do miss some other parameters. So we specified that access token, but we do also need to send or to serialize that idea into JSON. So let's do that. Let's create a JSON variable equal JSON, and I use JSON converter, which comes from JSON.NET, or actually, JSON convert, not converter. Then say serialize object in order to serialize a .NET object into JSON. So I go and serialize my idea into JSON, then I'll put it inside an HTTP content. Let's call it content equal new string content. Oops, it should be string content. That string content will have that JSON string. Now we need to specify the type of that JSON or the type of this HTTP content, because as we did here in Postman, we said that this is application JSON. So the way to do this in C# right here is to say that content.headers.content type equal new media type header value, and from here we say that this is of type application/JSON. You see that here we send it inside the headers, and the same for Postman. If we go to the headers, we see that here we do have a header called for content type, which have a value application/JSON. Now let's send this request or this HTTP request to the web service. For that, I'll go back to my client, use my client to invoke the PUT async, and from here the PUT async accepts two parameters. The first one is the string, and this is the address of my web service. So let's take that address, let's say it's this one, or actually let's take it from here. I should not misspell it. Oh, cool. And now with that address, so this is the address for my web service, and also the address to the PUT from inside the ideas controller, which should be here API/ideas. Then we do have this number /5. 5 is that ID, is the ID of the ideas, so we need to send that. We can get that value from idea.id. Then the second parameter will be the content that we want to send to our service. put async is a synchronous method, so don't forget to add the await keyword, and then we get the response back from the server. Here, for getting the response, of course, you can go and say if a response. We do have here parameters telling us if the request was processed successfully. Through the value here is success status code, but here for the brevity of the code I'll just let it like this. So you can return true or false, or return the value returned by your server. Cool. Now let's use this service from our view model. For that, I'll go and create a new view model to add or to put an idea. For that, I'll go view models, add new class, call it edit idea view model. A view model is a public class, and from here I'll go and create a property which will be here my idea. It should be idea. So this is my idea. You see that here on the other view models, like the add, for example, we did not created an object of type idea, but we have get the properties of the idea, which are the title, description, and category. But here I'll just get all the idea, because in that idea I need the ID and the user ID of that idea. Cool. Now to this idea, it will have all the properties, a description, title, and category. Then we'll show those values inside the user interface or inside our page, and we'll add a button. When the user clicks that button, we'll create the HTTP request and send the modification to our web service. That button, once clicked, it will invoke an I command. For that, let's create a property of type I command, or we can specify directly command. This command, we'll call it edit command. Edit command will have a getter and only a getter. We don't need a setter right here, so we remove that set keyword. The getter of the edit command, actually what it will do, it will return a new command. That command will have an action. This action could be defined as a delegate or lambda expression, and this lambda expression will be executed in each time this command is called. So when the user clicks that edit button, we will go and execute this edit command. This edit command will go and call our API services, where we have defined the put idea. So let's create an instance of this API services. Let's create that API services equal new API services, and then add the namespace for that API services. Here I defined it inside ideas.services. Let's use that API services, and let's invoke our put idea async. The first parameter we'll pass is the idea itself. The idea here contains the modified properties. Then we need to send the access token. And to send the access token, because we did store that access token inside the login view model by doing this here, we can then retrieve it from our put idea. So I can retrieve it right here because we did store it before. Cool. Now let's do await this, and with await we need to make the lambda expression be asynchronous. Good. So now we have created the view model. Now let's consume that view model from our page. For that, let's go and create a new page, going to cross-platform. So let's say it's edit idea page. This page will consume that view model. For that, we'll do bind this content page by doing binding context. We'll bind it to the edit ideas view model. So let's get the name of this view model, copy it, then use it right from here. And then because I want to access another namespace, so I need to I use it here the VM to reference that namespace. Here using ReSharper, it will generate automatically that namespace for me, and that's just by adding this line of code which is referencing a namespace where my view model lives, which is here inside the ideas view model. So if you look back here, the namespace is called ideas view models. If you don't have ReSharper, you can just add this line manually. After doing the binding, now let's show all the properties of an idea, the title, description, and the category. We'll show them inside a stack layout. We'll show each property inside an entry. The entry will be bound to, for that we'll use the data binding. We'll bind the first entry to the title of the idea. We'll have also two other entries to bind the description, and the first one to bind the category of our ideas. Then the user could change those values. Then we will have a button that will execute. Once it's clicked, it will go and invoke the edit command. That button will have a text, call it edit idea. Cool. Now to navigate to this page, actually we want that the user, when he launches the application, he will launch the ideas page, which displays the list of all the ideas, and if he select one of these ideas or type on one of these ideas, then he will go to the edit page. For that, I'll go here to the ideas page. From within the list view, I'll add the tapped event. Here we can use either the tapped or the select or the item selected event. I use the tapped right here, item tapped equal, then create that method. And again here I'm using ReSharper, which enable me to generate this method from right here in the C# code, and I can also rename it to say this is the ideas list view. Then hit tab, and then ReSharper did have renamed it even in my XAML code. So make sure here you use the same name of the event handler in your XAML and in your C# code. Cool. Now to navigate to that page, oops, we don't need this. To navigate to the edit page, we just use navigation dot push modal or push async, then go to new edit idea page. This is an asynchronous method. Again, await and async keywords. Cool. But now when I go to the edit page, it will show me the title and the description and the category of the model, but that model comes from here, and at this state it is null. It doesn't have any idea configured with, so the three entries will show nothing. Okay, those will be null until now. So we need to pass that selected idea from this list right here to the edit idea page. How we can do that? Actually, right here from the event handler, we can get the selected idea by saying idea equal e dot item. Item is of type object and it represents the selected or the tapped item from my list view. It's an object, so I can cast it or convert it into an idea. Then we'll pass that idea to my edit idea page. Here we do have lots of options for passing parameters to a view model. The simplest solution I'll use in this case is passing the idea through or passing the parameter through the page. So we added it to the edit idea page, but edit idea page doesn't have a constructor that takes one argument. For that, I'll add that idea to this constructor so that now it accepts a parameter of type idea. Cool. Now to this idea, because right here in the in the XAML code I have did data binding or binding context to the edit view model. So then here I can go and say, or I can retrieve that view model by saying that we can do here binding context as, and then I call this edit idea view model, because here binding context is of type object, so we convert it. Then we can retrieve our edit idea view model. Here make sure that if you want to retrieve your binding context, you do it after calling the initialized component. If you try to do this, for example, to retrieve it before calling your initialized component, then binding context will return null. Because here, if we ask the question what initialized component do, initialized component will go and execute, or it will render, the right term is render, this XAML code. So it will go line by line and try to invoke all the different options right here. Here it have binding context, so it will say binding context for this page equal new edit idea view model. So that line of code should be called after the initialize component. Cool. Now that we did access our edit view model, and we can go to the edit view model and say dot idea, because idea inside our view model is a public property, so we can access it. We'll go and change it to be equal idea, and that way we are able to change the value for this idea. But here we do have another problem. If you can see right here, the object idea, the parameters right here doesn't have, or it doesn't implement the iNotify property changes, which will do refresh the values shown inside the user interface. So right here, it means that at this point here, we have called the binding context to be equal new edit idea view model, and creating a new view model means that at that point the idea is null. And even when after we try to set the idea to a non-null value to take the idea that we sent from the previous page, then it will try, or it is not able to show this modification inside the page because IDEA doesn't implement the iNotify property change interface. So either we can use that interface, we can make IDEA implement iNotify property changes, or another solution, which I'll show right here, will do data binding to the view model before, or actually after, changing the IDEA. That means right here I'll do those modification. I'll go and create a new view model of type edit IDEA view model right here. So let's say edit IDEA view model equal new edit IDEA view model with E minuscule. Then right here I go and say edit IDEA view model dot IDEA equal IDEA, and go and comment those lines of code. With this way I have created a new ID, a new view model, then set its IDEA. So here I do have a title, description and category for my IDEA, so that when I call initialize component, it will go to render this XAML code. Here, because we did create the binding context and the code behind, so we don't need this anymore, so we comment it. So it will render this XAML code and it will try to access the IDEA. It will find a title, description and category because they do exist. Okay, cool. Now let's run this application and see it in action. Hit start. So let's try to get all the IDEAs, and here I get this breakpoint, get IDEAs from the controller, continue. You see that here I have logged directly to the application without having to register or to have the login page, because I did already register the access token, so I can access directly this page. Right here I do have all the IDEAs. Right here I go to change one of those IDEAs. For example, let's go to the IDEA D, for example. But oops, here we cannot show the IDEA D. Oh, that's because right here we didn't we deleted the binding context from the XAML code, but we didn't replace it from here from our C# code. So we'll do that by saying binding context equal edit IDEA view model. Hit start again. Let's change this IDEA, for example. Let's say it's 10 minutes book summary. Let's say this is Blankist startup, edit IDEA. We hit that, continue. Then we change the modification and the server returns success. So then if I go back here, try to refresh my list of IDEAs, here I do have the change done successfully. Cool, I hope this was helpful for you, and don't forget to check out the source code for this application, which lives inside GitHub right here with all the demos to help you to create applications that uses authentication and uses protected web services to develop Xamarin Forms application that communicates with ASP.NET backends. So thank you.